Greetings all, it's Renee here, and I want to talk about a very important topic that I have been writing about for a few days, and I have some ideas written down, so we'll just see where this goes. But the topic is around how fear is really the biggest virus that we face, and I want to talk about how to build immunity to that, and immunity in a sense of emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and physically. So, I'm not even going to go into all the backstory of why I keep writing about this, but I will say in a nutshell, when something is really, you can see it on a mass scale. You see in our culture, fear start to roll in, and this is not a new idea. We have viruses, and we have political movements, and we have revolutions, and resistance, and all kinds of things happening in our culture. And so when I speak about fear, I'm going to mention the coronavirus, but I'm also really going to just mention it as a whole. And I want to talk about what's most important. And first of all, the mind is this virus for us sometimes. Sometimes our mind can help us, it serves us because it helps us to focus, but there's other times in which the mind becomes our biggest form of suffering, because we can get so trapped into focusing on what could happen or what's not going right or what's wrong or what is the biggest worry or concern or stressor, and that puts us into this state of fear. Here's what happens when your body's under stress. Your digestive system actually stops working to the capacity that it needs to. It slows down. The digestive juices that you have that help you break down food, one of them being hydrochloric acid, this breaks down when you are under stress. This isn't working as properly. So when your body's in this fight or flight, stressed out mode, which becomes in our culture very normal for a lot of us because we are so inundated with media, and we're really inundated with the political culture and a lot of the things that feel so separate in our world at large. And so just becoming aware that being under any stress, whatever that stressor is, really slows down your digestive system. Now, what's interesting about that is that your digestive system is where your immune system lives. And so if you are under a lot of stress, what you're really doing is you're suppressing your immune system. And so to speak about building immunity with just food or supplementation does it a disservice, because it takes away from the topic that actually causes the biggest detriment to our immune system, and that is stress. So, by the way, I'm kind of speaking off the cuff. I have some notes here, but if you have any questions or you're curious, jot them below and I can answer them. So knowing that stress has this big, I gotta watch my time because I have a client. So anyway, if I look over, that's me looking at the clock. But knowing that stress is such a big detriment to our immune system, we also really want to look at the perspective of reality too. And so holding this idea that we don't need to be under stress, we don't need to be under false illusion of panic or viruses or things that could harm, but we also want to hold this other idea and know that there are facts and that there are things in reality that we can understand, and that with knowledge comes power, right? So there's two ways we can look at everything. We can look at it by love or fear, and I don't mean that in some like unicorn butterfly kind of way. What I mean is that there's really no other way to view things. It's that simple. You either are coming from a place of love, open-heartedness, abundant place, or you're coming from a fearful place. You're viewing it as a victim or lack, or feeling as though something isn't in alignment, something isn't flowing, and so we're restricting when we are in fear. And so for those people who are approaching a lot of the ideas around viruses or epidemics, which we've had for a long time, with a lot of fear, you need to realize that that's doing a disservice to your body. and maybe even the people around you. And I don't say that in a judgmental way. It's really about getting curious, because all of us have fear, every single one of us, and we don't need to live there primarily. We don't need to live there the entire time, if not most of the time. So we got to honor that fear. We need to almost befriend it and acknowledge that it exists, because let's think about it. When something comes up that causes fear, we'll say a virus, for example, we don't feel in control. We feel there's a sense of uncertainty. So we grasp for more control because we don't like to be uncertain as humans. We want to know the future, and it triggers trauma, I think, for a lot of people. So, I don't want to go on a tangent here, so I'm trying to focus my thoughts. But what's most important is that you surround yourself with things that are going to keep you focused on what you desire. So if you desire health, keep yourself focused on bringing in, inviting in more health. This doesn't mean that we live in some, cloud nine where we're not focused on reality either. And I'm going to get to some facts in just a moment about things. And so you can really hear reality too, at least from my perspective and my lens in this moment. And maybe it meshes with yours. Maybe it doesn't. That's okay too. But the reality is, when we are under stress, it suppresses our immune system. And so it's really our responsibility, if we were to look at it this way, it's the one thing we can control is how we can learn to regulate our nervous system. And I'm careful of how I'm saying that, because I don't believe that every single person has control over their stress when they have unhealed trauma, because sometimes it's just comes up, it's unconscious, and so we need support from other people sometimes to help navigate that. And when somebody is in trauma, they might gravitate towards things like the media that really bring them back to that heightened fight or flight stress response. And so I really want to give everyone a kind of, this, I'm sure, but please stop watching the news. Please. Stop watching anything on television that talks about this fearful perspective, because first of all, you want to find news that has journalistic, I'm going to say it this way, ethical standards that are in alignment with really good, respectable journalism. Very, very important. But when you watch things based on fear, which doesn't matter which news channel we're talking about, by the way, it doesn't matter. All of them really are there designed to promote fear. I've been on the news, and at least 4 or 5 times, 6 times, something, doesn't really matter, but enough to realize that the stories that were surrounding the topic I was talking about were all fear, 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 fear. And some people think this means, okay, ignorance is bliss. That doesn't work either. I totally agree. This is not about being ignorant. This is about knowing the reality. So when we think about something like a virus, one of the first things to know, again, stress response in your body lowers your immune system. So the panic and the stress that we live in about something, the fear, the constant focus on it, the worry, the concern, this actually is worse on the body physically, and I might even say mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, than the virus itself. Just know that. Especially in this case, less than 2% of people will get this particular virus I'm referring to. And I'm trying not to make it so much about this virus, so I'm not saying the name kind of purposely, just for no other reason. I think that this can apply to so many other things. The fatality rate is really low, and it's probably even lower because there's so many cases that aren't even known about. There's a lot of people who have it that will never show any symptoms. There's a lot of people who might get it that will find they'll cure themselves and never know that it even came to pass. And so the amount of people is probably higher, which actually lowers the percentage. And this comes from, immunologists who are doing a lot of really important research. And so what this means is we have control over boosting our immune system. We can focus on that. We don't know the future. So what this also becomes is a spiritual practice in letting go of having to know how things unfold. I think if I know this is a big idea, but I feel inclined to share it today, that I see this as like a big mass scale of people learning to trust and have a deeper level of faith in not knowing, and focusing more inward, because goodness, we can focus outward all day on media, on news, on memes that we see on social media, on conversations. We're in a big political climate right now. All of this is causing so much stress, and it's really impacting our physical bodies. I feel it. I have been feeling it for many years, and I feel like I have needed to do more, I'm going to call it front loading of lots of things, like things to reduce stress level, self-care, self-love, emotional healing, like so many things in order to help myself maintain a sense of somewhat sense, right? Like we're all human, but somewhat of a sense of inner calmness, if you will. So to kind of wrap this up, checking my time, you have control over your immune system. So I really want to encourage you to be rational and to think about it. Like, you know, if you're focusing on what's happening out there, hand washing is important. Yes, absolutely. But like, that's just like, you know, like what about a lot of water? What about sleep? What about calming your system down, your stress response? What about eating good whole foods? What about adding in like probiotics and fermented foods? Vitamin D, sunshine, one of the most important immune boosters of all. What else is there? Fresh air, nature, smiling, laughter, dance. This is how we become immune to fear. This is how we become immune to viruses. It doesn't mean that it's the perfect solution, but you'll have a way better fighting shot if you're focusing on that. Because what happens when we watch television and we get sucked into the media, Cheetos, soda, more coffee, it stimulates our nervous system. So then what are we doing? We're drinking something so simple as washing hands, and so many don't. Yes, Kim, so true. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. It's so simple. And so all these things are opportunities for us. I've listed so many, and I guess that's really what I want to kind of wrap up and say is that we have an opportunity to focus on what we can control, on what is feeling abundant for us in our body, and maybe less on all the things that might cause us fear. I love this quote. I will wrap up on this. Transcend the bullshit. And why I wanted to say that is because, you know, this is where we can, when a lot of fear comes up around whatever cultural issues, epidemics, things that scare us, it's an opportunity for us. I really see it that way as an individual. And that is for us to see our fear as maybe another part of us, to observe it, if you will, to watch it. Muji, who is a teacher that I really respect, says we suffer from distraction from our own self. So to put that another way, we are suffering. Most of us are walking around suffering because we are so distracted. We're so distracted from looking at our own self. I do this too. I see it all the time. I see myself get so distracted. And I really believe that the fear that we might have around whatever is going on out there is really going to dissipate when we come back and we focus on, what do I need right now? What does my body need? What can support me right now, right? Coming from that place, that's the real immunity booster, this connection that you have with yourself. And yes, wash your hands. Yes, drink water. Yes, get a lot of vitamin D through the sunshine or supplement. Yes, take your zinc and your vitamin C and load up on all the things that, you know, if you need support, reach out, Google immunity on reneejane.com and you'll find a whole bunch of things, I'm sure. But this is how we keep our being strong, the physical, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual. This is how we really boost immunity, as we focus our attention on what we can control and what is abundant for us, what we can create more of. This joy is an aspect of also how we feed ourselves. So watch where your attention is going. Watch if it's too much wrapped up in social media, and then watch about, a few hours later about what you're craving and what you're eating. Watch how your sleep is unfolding. If you're on your phone, right before you go to sleep, taking in the blue light, watch how you wake up in the morning after doing something like that. You're going to see a difference when you hold those personal and self-care boundaries for yourself. And again, if there's any questions, any thoughts, I'd really love to hear from you. I know this is kind of a big topic. I tend to write a bunch of notes and just go off the cuff. I got a client to coach in 10 minutes, so I'm going to run. But wonderful to connect with all of you. I really appreciate this space to share, and I hope in some way it resonated. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.